Hey everybody, welcome back to day 9 of the March Mood Mindfulness Challenge. My name's Amira and it's lovely to have you with me. So today I posted up the prompt nice and early, and the prompt is share the most memorable place, person, thing you've ever seen. And because this week we're looking at senses and how senses contribute to our emotions, yesterday we talked about sound, which is the first sense ever that we feel. It starts in the fetus, in the embryo stage. We are now looking at sight. So sight is for sure one of the biggest ways to comprehend information from the outside world to our internal senses. And I wanted to share my most memorable. Goodness gracious, we see many million things every single day. Our minds processing millions and millions of raw data as we sit and breathe and experience day in, day out. So we can't possibly see everything that's happening around us. It's way too much. So we kind of delete other things that aren't important and we focus on what is important. And so what we focus on is actually what we end up seeing, and what we focus on is what is more important to us. So when you see someone's always talking about their family, pretty safe to say that one of the things they value is family. If someone's always talking about money, then you know that is something that they value and they think about all the time. So when I think about something I've seen, I would have to say that one of my most impactful memories is seeing my children being born. You know, as a mom, also as a dad, as anybody who's expecting a baby in the world, you have this expectation. You're waiting 9 months for this beautiful, amazing soul to come into your life and change your life forever. So you set eyes on that beautiful baby that you've been carrying for so long, and there's just that instant connection. So when I look back on photos of, even photos of my children as they're growing up, my heart, I have to say, it's my heart that is, triggered. That's where the emotion is, the complete love, the complete unconditional love. So it's very fair to say that whatever we see in the external environment has an impact on our emotions. Now, what I wanted to do is go through the model of communication to show you just how our external environment goes through, affects us internally, creates a state within us to elicit emotions, and also how then we go on to behave a certain way. So let's take it from the top with an example so that you see how I mean. So let's start off with a life event. So let's say, for example, you are driving out of your driveway and you're pulling out of your driveway and you see in the distance across the road somebody is walking their dog. And they are being mean to the dog, yanking the dog, stopping and hitting the dog, and you're seeing something there that immediately triggers you. So let's say that's a trigger. You see a trigger, you can hear a trigger, you can smell a trigger, so you smell something burning, that's a trigger. You can taste something like, yuck, that's gross, that isn't off. That's a trigger. You can feel a trigger. You can touch something and go, ouch. So that's a trigger for a reaction. So in this case, we are talking about the eyes and what we see. You could probably also attach something to it. So you could see the trigger and you could also hear the noises from that event. So as you see raw data coming into your brain, this is sensation. So sensation, and I wanted to put this down because there's a difference between sensation, perception, and feeling. And a lot of people get the words mixed up, so I just wanted to put it in the right context so you knew exactly the right word for what's happening. So sensation is the raw material that's being inputted into your brain to create understanding. So you see something, you're sensing something. You hear something, you're sensing it. You smell something, that's a sense. So anything that uses your 5 senses, that's a sensation. Very easy to tell. Now, once all that information hits your brain, the different parts of your brain do different things, and I'm going to keep it really simple so that it kind of makes it easy for you. Your brain, there's conscious and subconscious. So if you think of the brain as an iceberg, consciously is the tip above the water, the subconscious brain is underneath there. 5% consciousness, 95% subconsciousness or unconsciousness. So when we do something, we don't think about it, that's coming from the unconscious mind. When you're focusing and you're really alert, that's using the 5%, between 5 and 10%, which is the conscious mind. So we here see this terrible event and we have a thought. Now the thought that comes out from our mind is based on a few filters that we have, that we've already collected growing up. So we have many filters. There's thousands and thousands of categories because we're complex human beings. I've put a few here. So say you have a love filter. A love filter is you have a love for dog. As soon as you see that event happening, you will feel like, oh my gosh, something terrible is happening. Someone is hurting an animal. And immediately you'll have a thought, which is that person's horrible. Or if you have a hate filter and you don't like that particular animal, you'll be like, yeah, that's good, one less dog in the world, or that dog needs to pay attention. And so your thoughts are created by the filters that you have in your mind. Filters are also could be cultural, so it could be the place where you're staying. So if the place where you're living right now is okay with people treating animals that way, then that's not a problem for you, and you won't think second thought about what's happening. But if you're living in a culture, or not even where you're living, it's like this is where you're currently living, but you came from another culture, like you've moved over from overseas, or even if you talk about family units. So with my family unit, we used to love dogs, and now I'm living in a place where they don't love dogs. So that's also a change in the culture. So so the culture is everybody respects animals. So when I see someone disrespecting an animal, I'll immediately start thinking and having an emotion according to that. Beliefs also, like these are personal beliefs. My personal belief is an animal is innocent and should not be mistreated. Somebody else will be like, yeah, it's an animal. It can't sue me. It can't hurt me. It has no feelings. That's somebody's other beliefs. So beliefs also create the way we think. Religion also, so anything with a set of codes that you've been taught and you believe in, this kind of ties in with belief systems. And so, if religion says harm no animal or harm nobody, then you will pretty much have a reaction when you see someone harming something. Whether you're male and female, whether you are, and also whether what you see is biased versus in regards to male and female. So if you see a woman doing that, you'll be like, oh, how come women are supposed to be kind? How come she's doing that? And if you see a man doing that, you might say, yeah, that's about right. A man using his power on a helpless animal. Or you might say things like, oh, that's just a woman. She wouldn't dare hurt an animal. Or you'd say things like, yeah, like my ex-partner used to hit animals. I'm sure that guy is now hitting that animal. So you're kind of got this biased male-female filter happening. Also past experience, and I just gave that example. So I used to always see that neighbor always hitting his dog, or I know women who hurt their animals, so I better watch to see if... So you will have kind of a predisposed experience in regard to that situation, and your mind will go back to that to get information and fill in the blanks. Now, as I said earlier, we have so much data, like 5 million bits of data coming at us in any given time. Like, what's the type of material that's covering my arms? What's the type of color that I'm seeing here? What's my what time's my child coming home? We've got a lot of things happening. How, I'm breathing, my heart is beating, what am I sitting on, what am I standing on, what the socks that I'm wearing, like all the sensations and all the what I'm smelling and what I'm seeing and the color. So there's just like lots of information coming at a human being at any given time. So we can't possibly be like looking and thinking and feeling. We'll be like a nervous wreck. So we kind of desensitize, and we can only really focus on about 5 or 7 things that are happening at one time. People say, oh, I can multitask. 5 or 7 things you can do without starting to forget the first thing. This is called DDGs, deletions, distortions, and generalization. Deletions is where so much information is coming at you that you're like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. And then you forgot whatever I said because it's just too much. It's just deleted all that stuff. It didn't go into the mind. It didn't make sense. I just deleted it. So sometimes when someone says, but I told you so many times that, to watch out for that. And you're like, you might have told me, but I just deleted the information. It was overwhelming. And that's fair. And just knowing that that's something that happens normally, it really gives us a break. Distorting is you might, and so for in the case of our example, so you might be running really late. And as you come by the park and see this event happening, you're like, nobody would dare to hurt a dog in this situation. And I'll just, keep going because I'm late for work anyway. And you kind of delete what you just saw and get to work because, you're running late and that's really important. And you see something and you're like, and your mind's like, we've got to go. And you're like, oh, okay. No, I didn't really see that. Was that there? Oh, I can't remember. And you'll almost like delete that event. And that's how a lot of people, like the hit and run kind of thing, it's like too overwhelming and you've got other places to be and it's just like, no, that didn't happen. And off you go. It's a survival, it's a safety strategy that the brain puts in place when you're overwhelmed by the information. Distortion is when you have an event and you can't make sense of it and it's either really overwhelming, so you're like, oh, that person wasn't really hitting the animal. They're just like, just being a little bit too rough. And then you kind of distort the big thing and you normalize it and you're like, yeah, I didn't think I saw that. And you just kind of distort what you've just seen. So I saw a man there, but he was wearing like an orange thing and the dog was not a puppy, it was a grown dog. You just distort the entire event so it looks nothing like what you originally saw. And this is also why, depending on memory, is very weak because memory changes very quickly soon after the actual event. So about half, there's an amazing show on Netflix. It's called How the Mind Works or something like that. I'll put the link below if you're interested, or contact me and I'll get the name for you. But it shows you how after the event people change, they distort their memory. The mind distorts the memory because it's unable to make sense of such a huge event. Lastly is generalization. So generalization is where you take an event and you just make it kind of like, yeah, we all do that. So you will see that happening and you'll be like, well, everybody kind of yanks their dog like that, or everybody disciplines their dog like that. So perhaps I shouldn't say anything. Perhaps it's none of my business. And then you're like, yeah, that's what everyone does. It's kind of like the done thing around here. This is where also society kind of lets you down. And it could be also that society doesn't do that, but you just ascribe it to generalization, and that's generally what everybody does. And that could be, once again, because that's your past experience. The last couple of times you've seen that kind of behavior, and it's just reinforcing that everybody does that. Even though it's 3 people you've seen in your life out of a million people that you do see, you've just concentrated on those 3 times that you tried to help and it didn't go well. So then you've made it as a repeating pattern, and then you've called it everybody does this. So this is all happening like in seconds. The minute you see that, all these filters are going in place, and as a result you have an emotion. And this is what we mean by perception, is how you see it. Because what's happening is the raw event. and then how you perceive it and the meaning you give to it happens because of your filters and the way you see it. So as a result, from whatever, all these things that are happening in your mind, this then creates this thought, this creates a thought, which is, oh my gosh, somebody is harming an animal, that's terrible, right? So then that thought secretes chemicals in your hormones and chemicals in your mind, which you then register as an emotion in some place in your body. So if you're saying, oh my God, I feel so sad that that's happening to that poor animal, you'll feel it wherever you feel it, whether it's in your heart, whether you get it in your stomach, and where we trap trauma is based on where we previously trapped trauma. So it's not necessarily, it could not necessarily be in the heart, it could be in other areas. I mean, you could feel it in the liver. Liver is associated with anger, frustration, resentment. And then heart is sometimes, heart is associated with grief. So you might have several things happening there. And so these are the feelings. When you say, I'm feeling sad, you're now registering that emotion. From there, you could then go back to, oh my God, what should I do? And sometimes it's just that. Sometimes a thought gives an emotion, and an emotion goes back, gives to make you think again, thinking and feeling, thinking and feeling, thinking and feeling. And this is where sometimes you get stuck and overwhelmed because you haven't processed the emotion. Sometimes though, there will be you move out of the loop and you make a decision, and from that decision you make an intention. So the decision is like, I've got to get out of the car, or I've got to let it be. Whatever you decide to do, I've got to let it, I can't get out. I'm going to get the finger, I'm going to get told to mind my business, I'm going to get told to F off. Whatever you tell yourself, and remember, it's emotions, thoughts, and then you make a decision. I can't confront that person because he's going to come hate me, he's going to abuse me. And so you then have an intention. And the intention is, I'm going to get out of the car, or no, I just need to get to work. And then from the decision and the intention, which sometimes you're aware of and sometimes you make unconsciously, you then start to behave in that way. And behavior could be action, getting out of the car or driving away, or inaction, which is also action, which is also driving away. What's happened though is that you haven't processed that emotion, so you're driving away still feeling sad, right? We're not talking about processing emotions here. We're just talking about how it happens. So the response, so whether you act on it or not act on it, the fact of the matter is that's the behavior. You drove away. That's the behavior. Whether it's a behavior of action, whether it's a behavior of inaction. So it could be an action. You just decided not to do it. I decided that I'm not going to act. Or inaction means I don't know what to do. I'm just going to keep going. So it just depends on how you see it and what you told yourself. And then as a result, there's the outcome. So the outcome could be, I drove away. The outcome is I felt even worse. That is the outcome. Now remember, the outcome is an event plus a response equals an outcome. So if the event, what I saw at the park, and me driving away made me feel sad, that is the outcome, that's the emotion. The outcome then, once again, if it's the thought or the emotion, that goes back to the thought, reinforcing the thought that you had in the first place of, I'm helpless in situations like this. I don't know what to do in situations like this. All men hurt their dogs. All women are mean to dogs. All dogs get abused by their owners. Whatever the behavior, the way you think, and the outcome that's happened will result in that thought that gets re-entrenched in your mind. And the interesting thing also is that sometimes the thought that starts off the whole thing may not be even triggered by an event, right? Sometimes at some stage, a thought just pops in your mind. You're just sitting there and all of a sudden you have a memory of that a few days later. Okay, so that was a subconscious popping back, bringing it into consciousness because it's something that needs to be dealt with. And then the emotion comes up, that same emotion that you didn't resolve on that day. That's the subconscious going, listen, this is the freshest layer. This is the freshest thing that's happened to us. can we try to release that? And you may at that stage then talk to somebody and ask, tell them what happened and clear out that energy. And then your message could be, I need to stand up for all animals because it's something I believe in. So the next time this happens, you start making intentions. The next time that happens, I don't care if I'm late or not, I'm gonna get out of the car and I'm gonna stand up for what I know and believe to be right. And at that stage, where you're living your truth and living your purpose or your calling or being true to yourself, that's when you never really worry about the consequences to yourself. You are just really focused on the truth, your truth. When they say speak your truth. And it could be just a matter of, look, I know nothing's going to change, but what's important for me is to express my truth and to at least stand up for an animal that's, innocent. And that could be all you need to release that energy. So thank you so much for listening to me, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed this explanation and that it makes sense. And the next time something happens, I want you to kind of go through this model to see just how it works for you. I mean, sometimes what happens is that it happens so quickly you don't even realize what's happening, and sometimes you are able to catch yourself at different stages. So if you catch yourself at the emotion, try to go up one step before. What was I thinking before that emotion came through? Some people catch themselves here at behavior. Why am I behaving like this? What did I feel just before? What decision, what intention did I make before? And some people here, can I tell you what happened? So such and such happened, and this was the result, this was the outcome. In which case you did all this stage unconsciously, and you just really woke up here at the end result where I'm getting fired. What the heck just happened? Where did that come from? So these are people who are like so unaware of what's going on around them, and they're so focused on something but unaware of what's happening everywhere else. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope this makes sense. And like I said earlier, try to catch yourself as you're going through your day and see where it is that you're paying attention, where consciousness and awareness sits. And just see how this model works for you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video.